Your future is not something you are chasing. It is something that is already responding. The reason this feels unsettling, perhaps even frightening, is because every single thing you were taught about the nature of time points in the opposite direction. You were raised in a Newtonian world, a world of cause and effect, where you were told that the present creates the future. You were taught that effort accumulates forward, step by step, until one day, if you work hard enough, you finally arrive. But what if that entire model is scientifically backwards? What if the future you are trying to reach already exists as a highly organized information pattern in the quantum field? What if the only reason it hasn't appeared in your physical reality yet is because your present state hasn't settled enough to receive its response? This is not a philosophical debate. This is mechanics. In the realm of quantum physics, time is not a straight line moving from left to right. It is a complex relationship between information, observation, and coherence. Futures exist as structured potentials long before they appear as events. Those potentials do not wait passively. They respond actively to the state of the observer in the present moment. Not to your intention, not to your desire, but to your state. The reason many people feel like they have been almost there for years is not because the future is far away. It is because their present state is in constant oscillation. In the quantum field, oscillation is the death of manifestation. The signal has already been sent. The future version of your life is not asking you to do more. It is waiting for you to stop moving internally long enough for the alignment to lock in. And this is precisely where the discomfort begins. To a nervous system trained for survival, settling feels like stopping, and stopping feels dangerous to an identity trained to equate motion with progress. When you slow down internally, when the urgency fades, when the desire loses its emotional charge, your ego mind interprets that as a loss of momentum. But in the architecture of the mind, usable momentum is quiet. This is why the phase you are in right now doesn't feel exciting. It feels oddly neutral. Goals that once felt urgent now feel distant. Visualization feels unnecessary. Motivation comes and goes without concern. Instead of panic, there is a subtle sense of nothing to fix. That is not apathy. That is the beginning of settlement. Settlement is when the nervous system stops scanning the future for resolution and starts inhabiting the present as if resolution is already guaranteed. And the moment that happens, the relationship between time reverses. The future stops waiting on you. The present stops delaying the future. Most people never experience this because they interrupt it the moment it starts. The mind rushes in and asks, "Shouldn't I be doing something?" The body tightens. Attention moves forward again, and the future, which was already responding, pauses. Not out of punishment, but out of mismatch. From the field's perspective, coherence wasn't sustained long enough. This is why effort-based manifestation eventually fails. Not because effort is wrong, but because effort belongs to an earlier phase. Once the future has organized itself in response to your signal, effort becomes noise. Noise reintroduces variability. Variability dissolves response. In quantum physics, the observer effect proves that how we measure a system alters the outcome. If a system is under constant, anxious measurement, it remains in flux. It never collapses into a solid form. When you react emotionally to the silence in your life, you are injecting noise into the quantum system. You are reintroducing yourself as a doubting observer instead of a stable presence. This is why doing nothing feels so difficult. Your mind equates stillness with passivity and passivity with danger. But in this stage, stillness is not passive. It is precise. It is the restraint required to let the waves of probability finally settle into your new reality. Neuroscience explains this clearly. When the nervous system remains in a state of mild vigilance, the brain prioritizes prediction over perception. Prediction is future-oriented. It scans for outcomes, evaluates risk, and simulates scenarios. While prediction is active, perception is secondary. And manifestation does not complete through prediction. It completes through perception. Perception anchors the present. When perception anchors the present, time stops being something you move through and becomes something that organizes around you. This is not metaphorical. It is experiential. You feel less rushed, less pressured, less compelled to act prematurely. Oscillation looks like this internally. One moment you feel aligned, the next you wonder if you should do more. One moment you trust, the next you check. One moment you feel settled. The next you revisit the desire emotionally. Each oscillation is small, almost invisible, but collectively they prevent settlement. Settlement does not mean resignation, it means internal consistency. Internal consistency is when your emotional state, your bodily regulation, and your sense of self stop contradicting each other. You are no longer telling the future, "I'm ready," and "I'm not sure" at the same time. Here's the part almost no one talks about. Interruption rarely looks dramatic. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like responsibility. It feels like being careful. And because it feels reasonable, people don't recognize it as the exact moment the process fractures. From the perspective of the quantum field, interruption is not an action. It's a state shift. The moment you emotionally revisit what you've already signaled as complete, you reintroduce uncertainty into the field. The system is waiting for internal closure. Closure is not giving up. Closure is coherence. Identity is what stabilizes timelines. As long as something exists as a desire outside of identity, it requires maintenance. And attention, when mixed with expectation, creates oscillation. Signal integrity comes from consistency over time, not intensity in moments. Consistency is only possible when the nervous system feels safe enough to stop monitoring the outcome. This is why people often report that manifestations arrive right after they stop supervising. Supervision is control disguised as responsibility. Control keeps the system alert. Alert systems do not allow reality to reorganize freely. They demand predictability, and predictability is the opposite of quantum movement. Quantum shifts require permission for the unknown to complete itself. The unknown completes itself only when you are no longer trying to resolve it emotionally. If you've been feeling like life is on pause, like momentum vanished, like desire softened without explanation, this is not stagnation. It's synchronization trying to complete. The future is not delayed. It's already responding. The only question now is whether the present can settle long enough to hear it. The future you are waiting for is not moving towards you linearly. It's already exerting pressure on the present. The reason you feel unsettled is because something has already reorganized ahead of you, and your current identity hasn't fully matched it yet. Settlement happens when your thoughts stop rehearsing timelines. Only then does the present become stable enough for the future to land. The paradox is that the future requires less preparation than the present does. You don't prepare the future by planning harder. You prepare it by stabilizing your now. The moment your present stops feeling like a placeholder, the future no longer has to stay suspended. It can arrive. This is why so many people sabotage manifestation right before it completes. They sense the shift. They feel the quiet. And instead of allowing it, they interpret the silence as absence. So they re-engage. They affirm again. And in doing so, they destabilize the very coherence that was about to collapse reality. Right now, if you're listening to this and something feels calm but unresolved, neutral but incomplete, that's not a mistake. That's the exact state that precedes settlement. You are closer than you think, not because something is about to happen, but because something has already aligned ahead of you. The only thing left is for you to stop leaning forward. Not by force, not by discipline, but by allowing the present moment to feel finished. Because the moment you settle, the future stops waiting. The mind wants to label this phase, to define it, to ask what comes next. But that impulse itself is the last residue of the old pattern. A regulated nervous system is not passive. It is precise. When your system exits survival mode, it enters a state of coherence. Brain waves slow, perception widens, and in that state, the body stops broadcasting urgency. Urgency tells reality you are not there yet. Calm tells reality there is nothing missing. True release is not something you do. It's something that happens when your system no longer needs proof to feel safe. When your present feels internally complete, even if externally unfinished, that's when the future stops hovering and starts integrating. Alignment looks like ordinary life. You go about your day. You make choices without symbolic weight. You stop measuring progress, and paradoxically, things begin to move. Not because you're trying less, but because you're interrupting less. This is also why people often experience a brief identity void before major shifts. The old version no longer fits, but the new one hasn't fully embodied yet. That space is not emptiness, it's reorganization. The field is extremely sensitive during this phase. It doesn't respond to effort, it responds to steadiness. The future does not rush toward chaos. It merges with stability. Nothing in this process was ever about chasing a future. It was about becoming quiet enough for it to arrive. The moment you stop trying to step into the future steps into you. Not dramatically, not loudly, but precisely. This is how real shifts complete. They don't announce themselves, they integrate. When the system settles, the observer collapses into coherence. And that's when reality stops feeling like something you're trying to influence and starts feeling like something that's responding naturally. Not because you earned it, but because you stopped interrupting it. This is the phase where many people feel an almost eerie normality. You're no longer hoping, you're no longer preparing. You're simply inhabiting the present without leaning forward or backward. That's not stagnation. That's alignment locking in. Outcomes don't appear when intention spikes. They appear when interference drops to zero. Once you reach this point, doing less is not laziness. It's intelligence. It's allowing the final integration to complete without supervision. Identity quietly updates. You don't declare yourself different. You simply stop relating to the past version of you. Permanence doesn't come from effort. It comes from coherence. If you want to stabilize this state, not just understand it intellectually, but embody it so it becomes your default. That's exactly why I created Quantum Rebirth along with the accompanying grimoire. It's not about manifesting more. It's about removing the internal interruptions that keep reality from completing its response. You'll find it linked in the pinned comment whenever you're ready to go deeper. The signal has already been sent. The response is already moving. All that's left is to remain settled enough to receive it. And when it arrives, it won't feel surprising. It will feel obvious because in truth, it was never late. A quiet certainty doesn't ask for proof. A knowing that doesn't rush the moment. This is where real shifts finish forming. Not in excitement, not in anticipation, but in grounded presence. When a timeline truly locks in, it becomes subtle, ordinary, integrated. The world doesn't feel dramatic. It feels aligned. And alignment has a very specific texture. Nothing feels urgent anymore. Intensity belongs to wanting. Completion belongs to calm. When reality has already reorganized at the level of consciousness, the emotional charge dissolves. That's how you know it's real. You stop orbiting the future. You inhabit the present without effort. Decisions feel cleaner, reactions soften. Old triggers lose their grip. And life begins to respond in ways that don't feel surprising. They feel appropriate. This is the signature of coherence. The field doesn't reward desire. It mirrors stability. And stability doesn't shout. It hums. If you're here now listening to this, and something inside you feels settled in a way you can't fully explain, trust that not as a belief, but as a recognition. You're not in transition anymore. You're in integration. The movement already happened beneath the surface. From here forward, life will feel like something unfolding in rhythm with you. True flow is the absence of friction. The sense that you're no longer arguing with the present. You're letting it meet you where you are. That's when intuition sharpens, not as flashes, but as a steady inner clarity. You know what to engage with and what to leave alone. And most importantly, you no longer feel guilty for not chasing because you understand something fundamental. Reality responds best to those who are already at home within themselves. Urgency belonged to the version of you who was still negotiating with life. This version doesn't negotiate. It participates fully, calmly, without demand. Outcomes are not rewards. They are confirmations. Confirmations that you didn't miss your chance. Confirmations that nothing was wasted. Confirmations that what is happening now could only happen after you stop trying to run away from it. So, let this phase be what it is. Not a pause, not an end, not a waiting room, but a quiet living of the life that has already begun to respond to you. Simply live from it. Because when the shift is real, it doesn't ask for your attention. It asks only that you stay present long enough to recognize that you have already crossed the threshold.